The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Game Toppers, the Olympic Games, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Oath from Leader Games. Then they take a look back at their review of Europe Divided in their Dukes Double Take. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And also Alex.
And you're joining us for episode 255, which we're calling Coal War, the Coal War. That title thanks to Steve O'Rourke, the name father, I believe is what we call him, because he's really good at naming these episode titles. And this was a great one. This was a perfect one. We agreed that this was the one it needed to be. Where we are, of course, talking about Oath, which is designed by Cole Worley. And then Europe Divided is about kind of a new Cold War. So Cold War, get it? Pretty clever.
Pretty good.
Pretty clever. So congrats to Steve on yet another. I think that's his 103rd. We should have celebrated 100 episode titles.
Probably, but we just missed out on it.
It's quite a few. It's quite a few. So if you don't know, we get help naming all of our episodes over on our Board Game Geek Guild, which is guild number 2008. We put up a Dukes on Deck segment every other week, or not segment, but Dukes on Deck post, and people can add some thoughts to the games we're talking about and help name the episode. We've got some runners up that we will give you at the end of the episode. All right. Anything else? We good? Let's jump into this episode. We got so much to do, Alex. There's so much. How are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing fine. I'll talk a little bit more about the trip to Orlando, but yeah, during this long hiatus, I was in Orlando briefly. Saw my good buddy Anthony. We, as I described to you, Sean, went to Galaxy's Edge down at Hollywood Studios, and hoo boy, that is a Star Wars experience and then some. It was amazing.
And you spoiled everything for me, like a scruffy nerf herder.
I asked permission first. You gave me the clearance.
I said, please no, and I tried to mute you, and somehow you unmuted.
No. Get out
Rude.
Of here. You
so
talked
rude.
yourself out of not being spoiled for that.
What
ride.
a rude Gus.
The ride I'm referring to is a ride called Rise of the Resistance, which I will not spoil on this podcast episode. But if you are a theme park fan at all, it is one of the most immersive rides I've ever been on, and pretty remarkable in a lot of ways. So anyway, had a fun time hanging out with Anthony. Been playing a lot of hockey. There's not a ton else to report. Baby's still coming along fine by the time this episode. In fact, the day we're recording this, Sean, is the start of the third trimester.
Ooh.
Which is, look, for the first three trimesters, pretty good movie. Pretty good movie. I was making a Star Wars joke.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Wait, you said for the first three trimesters?
Yeah, this one coming up is the best of the three.
Okay. So there's no fourth trimester.
No, there shouldn't be.
No, you said the first three trimesters.
Oh, sure.
As if to apply there are subsequent trimesters.
Well,
which I think we don't understand what trimester means if that's the case.
Should we choose to have another child? Is that the fourth, fifth, and sixth trimesters?
If Sure, Alex. If that's what you need, if that's what you got to do to make it make sense, you got it, buddy.
I mean, if that's the case, the second pregnancy is gonna be amazing. Anyway.
Okay. All right.
This is one of the dumbest jokes I've ever done on this show, and I apologize to anyone who took their valuable time to listen to it. So, yeah, and by the way, right before our previous episode dropped, Sean, you were busy doing a SeanCon.
A SeanCon. SeanCon 3.5, because we should have had the third one last year, but it was smack dab in the middle of COVID.
I got to tell you, I'm disappointed this hasn't grown to be like a 1,000-person event somewhere.
Well, there's been discussion about kind of opening up invitations to other people that want to come out, but this wasn't the year for that.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't want some big thing. So I don't know. But yeah, it's great. Things kind of settled down, and now in the last couple of weeks, COVID numbers are going back up. So hooray! That's awesome.
Hooray! Well, good.
Yeah.
So, did you play anything new at SeanCon?
Yeah, I did play a couple new things, but I played a lot of favorites, a lot of old favorites, and it was a very successful Sean Con. So, of course, for those that don't know, Sean Con is what we started doing 4 years ago now, around my birthday, where initially it started off with my buddies Andy and Ellie coming out, just because I couldn't get to cons and couldn't travel. I was so busy when I started taking over the law firm. And so they came out. And then the next year, Mitch came out. And of course, locals are joining us as well. And then last year we didn't do it because smack dab in the middle of COVID. And then we decided to do it this year. So it was really cool. So Andy didn't come out, unfortunately. Um, but Ellie and Mitch came out, and their wives, Jess and Jamie, in that order, respectively. They came out, and then we had a bunch of locals that joined us for all of the various activities. Thursday of Sean Con, that's when I met Mitch in the morning. Alex, have you ever been to Barella's Coffee Shop?
I have.
Fantastic New Mexican food, right?
Excellent New Mexican food.
I took Mitch there in the morning. We had breakfast there, had some delicious huevos rancheros, which is one of my favorite New Mexican dishes of all time. And then we went to pick up Ellie at the airport, and then the three of us, we went to the hotel. We checked into the hotel, went to the hotel pool, had some beers by the pool, and swam, and just kind of had a relaxing morning. And then around the afternoon, we headed over to Empire. Now, Alex, you know what we played at Empire very first game?
Baseball Highlights 2045. First
Absolutely
mention.
Not. Wait, not absolutely not. That sounds rude.
Man,
I don't mean absolutely not.
That was harsh.
Ellie's a big fan of Baseball Highlights 2045. No, we played Hadrian's Wall.
Hey.
And in fact, we played multiple games of Hadrian's Wall. It was a big hit with Ellie. Mitch almost melted down at one point during the rules overview. And then like in turn 2, he was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, just do these 9 things in this order to generate all of this stuff. So we played Hadrian's Wall. And the interesting thing about Hadrian's Wall is that this was a recent review. We tend to not like immediately play recently reviewed games. But no, I really enjoyed Hadrian's Wall, and I was glad I could teach that. We didn't do, I'm trying to remember what else we did Thursday night. I should have written this down, because now at this point, this was like 3 weeks ago.
You're rusty, man. This is a choppy start here.
Well, normally it's normally it's right after Sean Con or during Sean Con that we've kind of talked about Sean Con. But that night we were joined by Raquel eventually, and then Ellie's wife didn't come into the following night, but Mitch's wife, Jamie, joined us that evening. We went over to Two Fools Tavern, which is an excellent Irish pub. We had this great blue cheese cheese dip. We had some chicken wings. We had some fish and chips. Fantastic night. And then yeah, that was kind of it. We wanted to take it easy that night, not get too crazy, because we had a long road to go for the rest of Sean Con. So Friday, we got to Empire. We got to Empire early. Is that right? Did we get to Empire early on Friday, or was that also a pool day? No, we got to Empire early.
It's been so long. Wait, and Sean, at no point, by the way, are we saving this for the review? Are we saving why we're late for the review?
Yeah, we'll talk about it then.
We'll talk
about that.
Rory.
Okay, so Friday we did get to Empire early. We had like a 9 o'clock day, I think 8 o'clock morning start time. We played some No Thanks. We played some we played some Glory to Rome that day. We played Glory to Rome actually quite a bit. Glory to Rome was the hit of Sean Con, a shocker. But no, it was a kind of a fun little morning. Things got a little bit crazy though, Alex, because I did forget to mention that the day before, so the Thursday, I had scheduled that day an emergency hearing that I had to cover.
Oh.
And I couldn't have someone else cover it. It was only supposed to take 15 minutes. We did it for 15 minutes, and then the judge said, okay, but I need everyone to come back tomorrow. Mr. Ramirez, I know you're on vacation. We'll get you in and out in 15 minutes. This is all over the phone. And so I said, okay, I'll show up for 15 minutes. First, she says, well, can't you just have someone in your office handle it? I'm like, no, it'll take way longer for me to get this person up to speed to handle this hearing than it would be for me to actually handle it myself. So I'm like, okay, I'll be there. So Friday of SeanCon, I am, for this 15-minute hearing, I am basically locked up for 3 hours doing this hearing in the back office of Empire. 3 hours, Alex. 3 hours. It was wild. So we had started playing a game called Obsession, which is this Victorian England Euro game, Pride, Intrigue, and Prejudice in Victorian England. Have you heard of Obsession?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I played this with Mitch, and then Eugene and Candy were also playing. They were teaching the game, and we played with them. And I'll describe the game here in a little bit because it's a new play. And we started the game, and with like maybe 40 minutes left, I had to start my hearing. And then basically there were breaks in the hearing, and I would come out and I would take a turn. Like, I felt so bad. It was like the worst feeling because we were basically done, but I had to keep leaving to go to this 3-hour hearing. It was ridiculous. It was awful. But Obsession was actually quite good, Alex. It's this very interesting. It's a Euro game where you are managing these servants. You have different meeples. They're different kinds of male and female servants, and then you also have these family member cards. And each of your turns, you're basically choosing some sort of activity that you're hosting. Everybody starts with these tiles. They're all the same for everybody. I think there might be a little bit of asymmetry, but for the most part, they're all the same. And they're going to give you some sort of an ability when you use them on your turn. It might be money. It might be gaining a new servant. It might be gaining new, not family members, but new cards to your hand. New like noble people, sometimes Americans, and they're not actually noble. But in order to do this event, host this thing, you have to play a requisite number of male and or female family members from your hand, and then a requisite number of particular types of servants in order to, like, for instance, you're hosting a bowling party on the bowling green or something like that, or you're hosting afternoon tea. And so there's certain requirements. And as you play these cards to meet those requirements, there are also bonuses for those cards that might happen. And so really it's this whole resource management aspect. It's a game kind of like Concordia, where it's a hand management game, and you're playing cards into your discard pile, and then you have to choose when you're kind of not taking a turn to recall everything. But in addition, all of those servants, you tucker them out, Alex. They're tired guys and gals. And so anytime you use them, they then go to this like rest area, and they have to kind of cycle back through again. There are these like town. Okay, so this is the wrong time period, Alex, but have you seen Downton Abbey?
So I literally, as you were talking about this game, which I had not actually heard of before, to be clear.
Okay.
I copied a link and sent it to Abby, who's watching the Olympics downstairs as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Abby has been rewatching Downton Abbey lately.
Okay.
I've seen some episodes of Downton Abbey. I have sort of followed along with the story. I know the concept of it. I can tell you this would be a very interesting one for Abby.
Yeah, I don't know that she would necessarily like the gameplay, but certainly the theme she might like. And again, it's different time periods, right? Downton Abbey is around World War I. This is the Victorian era, so different time periods. But you still have kind of that upper crust English nobility, and you've got the servants putting everything together, and it's all about impressing the dowager countess with your rose garden, so to speak, I guess. Despite being severely distracted, I won that game quite handily, which was pretty nice. Let me see, what was my score here? I had 162 to Eugene's 137. By the way, anytime I beat Eugene, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops.
Oh, sure. That's a milestone.
Candy had 130, and Mitch was a little bit behind all of us with 93. So after that, we played and again, this is kind of me after I'm coming out of my hearing. I'm pretty exhausted. I'm pretty beat up at this point. I there were some disagreements with the judge. There were some threats made by the judge at one point to
Okay.
me
Oh
that
no.
eventually got walked back,
Oh,
which
okay.
was this was not good. This was I needed a do-over for Friday of this particular Sean.
Is there going to be a show sometime in the future where we have to delay recording not because Rory screwed us up again, but because you're in jail for contempt of court?
Um, so there was one time where I was pretty sure before at the hearing that there was a good chance I would be held in contempt.
Ooh.
And I told my partner at the time, I said, hey, make sure, let me write your phone number on my wrist. I just want to make sure I have it just in case I need you to come bail me out if I'm held in contempt, because there's a chance it might happen. So hopefully not. Hopefully not. Okay. Another new game, another new play, Alex, Dive. This, I should probably, I was going to say Obsession. This was like a weird passion project, designed by Dan Halligan, published by Kayenta Games. That's Kayenta. Super weird, super interesting production. Overall, I enjoyed it. I'd be happy to play it again. It was a weird game though. Okay.
So wait,
Yeah.
just to jump in here, I looked up Obsession because I'm like, oh well, this is a theme. Abby might like to try it, and we'll at least we'll poke at this one.
Okay.
So the first edition of this you can currently buy on eBay for the low price of $250. But I believe there was a Kickstarter of
Yes.
some kind.
Yes.
There is a production backlog on that Kickstarter. They have, they have a lot of them that they're waiting on. Let's see. Yep, they don't have anything on hand. They have some of these expansions. Yeah, good luck. Good luck finding it is sort of the thing. So there's a second edition coming, but it is not easily findable as of the time of this recording.
Yeah, and Eugene had kickstarted it, and I think he had kickstarted like the second edition, and it was, or maybe it was the expansion or something like that. Anyway, I enjoyed it. I'd be very happy to play it again, especially when I can devote my full attention to it. So then after that, Raquel, Eugene, Candy, and I played a game called Dive, which is interesting and kind of cute, but I hated it. So you are this deep sea diver that is trying to spot turtles and spot stingrays, but avoid sharks. All right. Now, here's how you're doing it, though. You are taking these blue semi-transparent tiles that have painted on or printed onto them sharks or like I said, the sea turtles, the manta rays, etc. And you're stacking them together. I think there's like maybe 20, 30 of them, whatever. Sometimes they have big holes in them. And so what you're doing is you're taking this big stack, the shared stack, and you're looking down and you're trying to figure out what exactly are on the particular tiles for the next 5 down. If so, on the very top one, if you think there's a shark there, you have to program. You have these little discs. I think they go from 1 to 5, and you have to program if you think there's a shark or no shark. So if you think there's no shark, you place a disc on its white side. If you think there is a shark, you place a disc on its black side. Now, if there is also a sea turtle or a manta ray, then you are trying to bid with that disc. Again, they go from 1 to 5, and whoever is correct at guessing whether there are these manta rays and turtles and has bid the most with their discs will get bonus points for those. But you have to be correct. So eventually you're secretly locking these things in. Everyone's done. You say, okay, let's reveal it. And then you pick up the top semi-transparent tile and you go, oh, yep, there's a shark there. Who put the black side up? Okay, cool. We're all good. You have to get it exactly right. And the minute that the level that you stop, that's as deep as you go. And you'll score points for how deep you go. But the deeper you go, the more points you get. Raquel and I were terrible at this game, like just terrible. because you would look down and you'd be like, oh, that shark, there's no way that shark is on the top level. That shark is 2 down. But no, the shark was on the top level. I don't know. I don't know if it's a depth perception issue. I don't know what it is. We did terrible at this game, the two of us. I was not a fan. I think it's kind of neat, and I think it's pretty innovative, but it just wasn't for me. It might be for some people. You might like it, Alex.
Okay.
How's your depth perception?
It's okay. Could be better.
Okay, which hand? Wait, hold on. Which hand is closer to the can? That's terrible. Never mind.
No, it doesn't work.
Okay.
And I think it was pretty easy.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. It doesn't work because this is an audio podcast. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was Dive. This was by Pegasus Spiel, designed by Romain Cardidijon and Anthony Peroni. After that, we went to get some more New Mexican food. This was the big Sean Con dinner. There were about 15 of us that came out for this. And we went to El Patio? No.
Okay, wait. I was about to jump in. So, because they're within our neighborhood here in St. Louis, there is a Mexican place which we will go to maybe once every couple weeks called El Tapadio. So, but the one of the jokes is that we're just going to call sometime and someone was going to pick him and say, El Tapadio, how can I help you? Anyway, another dumb joke. I'm not on fire tonight, Sean.
What's the place that's out on like 4th Street and
Oh, my memory of New Mexican places is shot.
No, but this is like you bring like out of town guests to this place. Like the
You're talking about like way up north, maybe?
Way up north. Yeah,
North side of town.
Yeah.
They have salsa. It's not Garduño's. Yeah, they have salsa. Yeah, I know. Big distinction.
They do have salsa.
They have salsa that's sold in stores there, is what I'm getting at. I know where this place is more than I know.
Not El Patron.
I'll find it. I'll get this one before. Give me one moment.
Okay. So yeah, we had dinner there, and here was the very interesting thing. Apparently and this was the first time we had been in an Uber since the pandemic started. But apparently Ubers and Lyfts are now much harder to come by, at least here.
Huh.
And it took us, like, we showed up late. Like, we were leaving on time well in advance, but we had several Ubers and Lyfts cancel on us. Like, we'd be waiting for 10 minutes, cancel. And then at one point we had to call Rory. We're like, Rory, you need to come pick us up. And then he was taking forever. We finally got a lift out there. It was very strange, but it almost felt like living in a post-apocalyptic time, not having access to. I know it's weird.
At any point, did you consider calling a taxi service?
We did, yes.
Okay.
At a certain point we did, but I was like, oh my God, like we're going to be super late. We were about 15 minutes late, which
it's not too bad.
Grand scheme of things. Yeah.
Sean, were you referring to El Pinto?
El Pinto. Thank you. Yes. Good job, Alex. Beautiful place.
Yes.
Much of it is patio. Very nice. Food is decent. I think there's better food better New Mexican food, but the atmosphere is very nice. They charge about double for a pitcher of margaritas that you would get elsewhere, which was a little rough because we paid for 2 pitchers of margaritas and it was not what I expected it to be, but that's fine. But no, we had a great time. Like I said, there were 15 of us. They came out. Rory and Marie came. We had Ellie and Jessica. We had Mitch and Jamie. We had Nick came out. Candy and Eugene came out for dinner, and then Jeremy and his wife Alyssa came out. So we had a very nice dinner, really good time, and that was a good night. That was a good night, and we went back to the hotel, and I think we played some more Glory to Rome. So that was Thursday and Friday of Sean Con, and I'll end it there for now, Alex.
Okay, action packed. Yeah. Well, look, Sean, we played a number of games when I was in Florida. One of them I'll highlight because I insta-bought it, and BGG sharply disagrees with my decision. I mean, sharply disagrees. So the game I'm talking about is a game called Marakech. Have you played this game, Sean?
I have not, but I've seen it.
Okay. So Marakech, really light game. Weight score on average on the scale of 1 to 5 on BGG, 1.37, which I think is about right. This is a game where it's effectively an area control game with rugs. You, on your turn, are going to choose, there's an Assam, who's sort of the piece that moves around the board, and you can choose whether the Assam goes straight, takes a 90-degree turn and goes left, or takes a 90-degree turn and goes right. After you make that decision, you'll then roll the die, which will move the Assam 1, 2, 3, or 4 spaces forward. If the Assam lands on empty space or a carpet of your type, then congrats, good job, you don't have to pay anyone anything. However, if the Assam lands on someone else's rug, you're going to pay them 1 coin per space within that group of rugs. So, Sean, if you had an area of like six rug spaces taken up on the board, I would have to pay you $6 for the privilege of the Assam landing on the rug. That's the game. Basically, wherever the Assam lands, you will place a rug down. It has to be on a space adjacent to the Assam. It can, and probably should in a lot of cases, overlap existing rugs. So you sort of have this variable area control game. BGG does not think highly of this one, Sean. A 6.7 average rating. Yeah, really low score. I liked it a lot. I insta-bought this. I thought this would be a great one to play with Abby and a friend of hers or something. This is not a hardcore game by any means, but I had a ton of fun with it. It's super simple, fun, light. It's published by Gigamic. Yeah, that's Marakech. That's the main game I was going to talk about in that group. But Sean, I'm going to save us some time and double up here because I need you to catch your breath from Sean Conn, because I'm about to talk about a game that is epic and that BGG is on the exact opposite side of. This is a game called Nemesis, which could have very easily been a review at some point on the Dukes of Dice, though it would have been really hard to get me to play it. Jamie Stegmeyer brought his copy over. Well, not his copy, a friend's copy that he borrowed over. He had learned how to play, got us set up. We played a 5-player game of this on Sunday. This is not actually Aliens licensed, is my understanding, but it might as well be. I mean, it feels like Aliens, the board game. The premise of this one, and this is done by Awaken Realms. I've only played one other Awaken Realms game before, and I hated it. So I was very surprised that I did not hate this one.
Which one was that?
I think this War of Mine's Awaken Realms.
Oh, is it?
Oh, maybe not. Oof. Ooh, we're 0 for 3 so far, if that's the case.
I'll look, Alex.
Okay, Sean's going to look it up. I may have foot and mouth. It's possible that I haven't played any Awaken Realms games before. In any case, on Nemesis, you wake up as different crew members aboard the spaceship Nemesis. This is a semi-cooperative game, emphasis on the semi part of that equation. You are secretly given 2 goals, one of them kind of more of an altruistic goal, and one of them more of a selfish goal. Sean, you have the requisite information?
Yeah, it is Awaken Realms. You're correct.
Good. Woof. Woo. That was a close one. I don't know if my heart could have taken any more of that. Anyway, you all wake up in the center of this ship. You don't know where the ship's going. You don't know if the engines are working. All you know is there's a dead crew member body in the heart of the ship where you all awake. You play different roles. Someone's a scientist, someone's an engineer, someone's a soldier. You have these different roles. You have secret goals, and you will start wandering and exploring the ship. The ship itself the tiles for it are face down, and you don't know what rooms you're going to run into. You could run into an alien nest filled with a bunch of alien eggs and monsters ready to jump out at you. Or you could just run into, I don't know, the fire control room, the fire suppression room. As you move, you'll create noise. If you ever roll in such a way where noise would go back to a space where noise already was, you're going to get a random encounter. That could be, say, a larva jumping out. So in my case, I played as the ship's engineer. The first room I walked into was randomly on fire. Not great. Not a good start for the engineer. I then immediately ran back into another room, creating a ton of noise along the way. And on my next turn, eventually when we got there, I was back in the engine room because, hey, I'm the engineer. I gotta fix the engines. I went one way. Everyone else in the group went the complete opposite way on the ship. So I'm stranded at the back of this ship alone. And I'm the first one who has an encounter with an alien. So as I'm repairing the ship engine, all of a sudden a larva is there, and it's lodged in my belly. Like, boom, immediately, I'm in big time trouble. Everyone else is wandering up towards the front of the ship. Haven't run into anything yet, just created a whole bunch of noise in the process. But that's where the game really starts. Because at that point, you're going to choose between your more altruistic objective and your more selfish objective. So, as an example, in my case, my objective said you have to either make sure the ship is headed towards Mars, so headed somewhere else to kind of save humanity, or make sure it's headed towards Earth, but you've destroyed the alien nest. So I had to do one of those two things. Or, alternately, make sure player 4, my buddy Patrick, doesn't survive. Or be the only surviving player, if you happen to be player 4. So, those are the objectives you had. I had to choose between those at that moment. I had just determined that one of the ship's engines, I had just fixed it. But as soon as the larvae got lodged in my belly, well, screw this. I'm way in the back of the ship. Everyone else is up there. I might die, but I'm going to go down swinging. I went the evil route. And so I then went to the next engine to avoid suspicion and switched that one and broke that engine. So I had one fixed engine. I had one broken engine. This is key for reasons that will become clear. So anyway, as you explore, the game has a system for encounters at the end of each round. If an alien's standing in fire, it takes damage. During combat, you have very limited ammo. But if you do damage to an alien, basically a card flips off the deck that tells you whether the alien's dead, alive, or runs away. And it accumulates damage, but you, more often than not, won't do enough. It felt like we were playing out a movie as this one went on. Because your objectives in this game steer you towards doing stuff that isn't necessarily optimal for controlling everything or surviving or whatever else. For instance, Jamie's secret objective was go to the comms room, send a message to Earth, let him know this alien stuff's coming, get ready to put us in quarantine or whatever else. Miles's goal was you need to bring back specimens to the lab to study this alien, because you can study the aliens and learn about their weaknesses. You need to bring back at least 2 specimens. We weren't on track to do any of this, partly because we discovered the lab very late, and we discovered the comms as like the last room we uncovered in the entire game. Jamie and Miles were in a room together. This is after, again, cinematic, I had crawled through service tunnels and gotten surgery on myself to remove the larvae from my belly from the first encounter with the aliens. I was running the other direction to try and kind of fulfill objectives, maybe head back towards the other engine, to make sure the other engine was broken, just to be sure. Jamie and Miles are standing in a room with an alien, with a big adult, scary miniature of an alien, and they're both out of bullets. So you can punch aliens in this game. You can go into melee combat. You take a contamination, right? So there's a chance you can die from contamination. And you're unlikely to do a heck of a lot of damage. They do eventually, after several rounds. It was like the movie like kept cutting away and then cutting back to them, like trying to punch this alien to death. Eventually they do it. They take a ton of contamination cards. They are certainly going to die. Neither of them are the person I need to have killed, by the way. They punch this alien to death, and they sort of like nod at each other as they head off to do their respective objectives. Jamie dies in the next room when he's ambushed by an alien. Miles dies when a queen jumps out of nowhere and tears him to shreds and then carries his dead body into the lab where he was headed with specimens. Meanwhile, Patrick has been running away from fire this whole time. He's trying to come back towards the center because at a certain point in this game, Sean, let's get back to objectives. You can win this game by doing a couple of things. One, you survive, right? Or you do something that meets your objective and you don't have to survive to do it. In order to survive, the ship itself has to be working. At the front of the ship, you have to have the destination set properly so that it goes to Earth. And then you have to get into hibernation and successfully hibernate without an alien popping out and biting your face off. Right? Those are the core basics of how you win. So Patrick was trying to work his way back to the center of the ship to hibernate. And I was about to place a door. I was about to seal off a door to kind of block the alien that was running around. He's like, oh, if you placed it there, that would show that you're really, like, I guess if you were to, good thing you didn't put it on this spot, or else that would have meant you were trying to kill me. I was like, huh. And so I placed it in that moment, and sure enough, he was sealed. He fought his way through an alien nest. But he couldn't get to the center of the ship, so he went back to engine number 2 with the intent of sabotaging it. Like, if I can't win, nobody's going to win. Not knowing that I'd already sabotaged that engine. So, meanwhile, Joe, his secret objective this whole time was make sure at least one other person survives. And that objective was not looking good. Was not looking good for a time because it was basically down to him and me. And he's like, yeah, just come and hibernate. We're good to go. I was like, well, there's another route here. Because what he didn't know was that there was only a 50-50 shot that the ship actually flew. You need 2 of the 3 engines to be working. I didn't know what state engine 3 was in. It will start randomly either broken or fixed. I crawled through service tunnels yet again, made my way up to an escape pod, and I think it dawned on him, I was the only person playing because he had hibernated and removed himself from the game, that it was going to be a coin flip whether he won or lost. And he won. We both won. We both won the game. I accomplished my objective of killing Patrick and escaping an escape pod that got shot off to Earth. He accomplished his goal by me surviving and guiding this ship through hibernation back to Earth successfully. There was going to be a lot of explaining to do when we all got there, but in any case, Sean, I've done a whole heck of a lot of talking of the story of this game, very light on the mechanics. The point being, this was an experience that, with a teach, took us about 4.5 hours.
Yikes.
Beefy game. But it did not feel that long, and man, oh man, was it memorable. It was memorable as heck. This is a top 25 game on BGG all time. I absolutely understand why it is. I really enjoyed this, and I plan on playing this again sometime in the near future. Sean, you mentioned you had played this before and weren't super impressed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I couldn't tell you 10% of what you mentioned in your game. I couldn't remember 10% of that. Granted, it's been a couple years at this point, but no, I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. I'm almost certain all of our minis were painted because I think we had, I think Rory had Jared paint the sets. Our buddy Jared, who paints a lot of our board game stuff, or did before he moved. So that certainly adds to it. It was, I like Awakened Realms quite a bit. I mean, Hellas is a fantastic game. I painted my copy of Hellas. But yeah, no, I wasn't super thrilled with it. It was just okay for me.
Okay. I found it more than okay. It's one of the more memorable game experiences I think I've had. And I'm curious to see if it holds up on a second play.
I would play again.
It didn't have it had its share of issues. We took a little bit to understand the noise mechanic, but I think it would go a lot smoother on a second play. And again, for time to fly that fast and for me to remember what everyone else was trying to do in the context of this larger story, truly it felt cinematic to me. And maybe we just had an especially good play of this, but I think there's a lot of emergent narrative that this game creates that another game we might be talking about later in this show maybe doesn't do quite as good of a job of creating.
Okay.
Anyway, little teaser for later. So that is a recent play of Nemesis as well as my Orlando trip. Sean, back to you for the recap of Sean Con.
Yeah, so let's talk about Saturday morning. We got up early again, but not to get to Empire. This was early Saturday morning to spend some time in the pool, Alex. We had a lazy pool morning. Although we did get to Empire, I think around 11. So, we got up early, had our time in the pool. The wives joined us. It was a very nice, relaxing morning. However, as we were heading to Empire, we got a text message. I think Matt and Jeremy were there, and someone had broken the glass in the front door of Empire. Threw a rock through the front door of Empire. Didn't get in, didn't steal anything. Someone just broke the glass. No idea why. So that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
So we showed up and we broke out Kemet. We broke out Kemet, the 6-player with the Seth expansion so that it's one versus the many. Alex, I'll give you one guess to guess who was the one.
Sean Ramirez, attorney at law. He plays the one in 1v games. That's his specialty. Don't try and take it from him.
That's fair. So yeah, we played Kemet, and this wound up being a good chunk of the day, good chunk of the remaining afternoon. And Kemet is my number 2 game after Magic the Gathering, and I think it's pretty safe to say it continues to hold that spot. Although it's been a while since I played it, not something you can really do much during COVID. But it's a fantastic area control game. Action selection with deterministic combat. So there's no dice rolling. I love it. I just love it so much. Now, before I spoil who won, I will say that we took a break mid Kemet to walk down the street to a newer eatery called Clown Dog. Clown Dog, Alex. This is a quote unquote gourmet hot dog shop
Okay.
where you order a hot dog, and it could be a hot dog, it could be a brat, it could be sausage, I think. And then there's all of these crazy toppings you can get. Crazy toppings like SpaghettiOs, like mac and cheese. There were some like sugary ones too. I can't remember what.
Sean,
It was, yeah.
I have a weird aversion. I can't explain it, but I have a weird aversion to SpaghettiOs specifically.
Okay, well, don't get SpaghettiOs on your Clown Dog.
There's something about the smell of him. I don't know. I may not have actually ever had SpaghettiOs.
Okay.
But there's just something about him that grosses me out.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of SpaghettiOs, but yeah. So we all went there. We got these like jalapeno poppers. They had these fantastic onion rings. I got a hot dog with jalapenos and green chili and cheese, and I think I had onion rings on top of my jalapeno or on top of my hot dog. But loaded. I mean, just loaded. Man, it was fantastic. However, everybody was hurting for the next 18 hours afterwards.
Ugh.
We got back to our game of Kemet, and there was still a good hour and a half of Kemet left. And we were just all kind of like, ugh. It was really good. In fact, there was even discussion about going back the next day. But as of the next day, we decided, no, there were reasons that we could not go back. So we did not go back. So anyway, we finished up Kemet, and I won. Kemet. It was very close. The one versus many 6-player games are usually very close, and this one was very close. It could have gone either way with the team beating me, but I pulled it out. We played some Quacks of Quedlinburg. We played some Dune Imperium. So that was pretty good. That was a pretty good Saturday. I don't remember what we did that night for dinner. I think we were all too full, is I think what it was. And I think I don't remember. So Sunday was kind of the day everybody started leaving. However, before that, before everyone left, although Mitch and Jamie, they drove out from San Diego, so they had to get an early start. I did rent us a theater for Black Widow. So we had 20 of us show up to Black Widow, watch Black Widow. Great time, a lot of fun. And then at that point, everyone kind of went their separate ways. Although I had Ellie and Jess, their flight wasn't leaving till like 6:37, and then it kept getting delayed. So we hung out. We played some games. Ellie and we played a scenario of Commands and Colors Ancients. And then at one point, Raquel and Mariah and Chewie came. And so us and Ellie and Jess, we played a Fake Artist Goes to New York a couple times, which was pretty fun. So yeah, then took them to SeanCon, took them to the airport, and that ended SeanCon, Alex. And it was a very good time. It was great seeing everybody. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So hopefully next year, Alex can make it out to SeanCon. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I like it. You got to come to St. Louis at some point too. That's the thing.
Yeah, I'll come to St. Louis at some point.
At some point. Okay.
So
Boy, I don't like how open to interpretation that one is.
Well, it's at some point. That's all I'm saying.
Here's the thing with me and SeanCon that I'd be worried about. You come into SeanCon with this expectation of we're gonna play Kemet and we're gonna play all these heavier hardcore games. And I don't know. I'm worried I'm gonna slow y'all down and be like the Debbie Downer who doesn't want to play Kemet.
No, listen. We played Hadrian's Wall, Biblios, No Thanks, Glory to Rome, Obsession, Dive, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Dune Imperium. Yeah, we played Kemet. And when it was just me and Ellie, we played, Commands and Colors Ancients. But I mean, that's not.
Man.
Oh, I forgot. That's what we did. So Sunday morning, Mitch, Ellie, and I got up super early before Black Widow, and down in the hotel lobby, we played the first 2 eras of Space Corp.
Okay.
So we were up early every morning doing something, gaming, pool time, whatever. We made very efficient use of our time.
So you got to the voir dire stage of Space Court.
The voir dire stage, is that what you said? Oh,
yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
That was a better one.
I've never done voir dire. Never had to do that.
Oh, interesting.
It scares the crud out of me having to do voir dire. That's where you select a jury.
Yes.
So
I wasn't just throwing out legal terms randomly. I knew that one. Mainly from reading John Grisham books.
Oh, I thought it was something to do with what's the anime?
Phoenix Wright?
Yeah,
there is absolutely no jury in Phoenix Wright. There's just a very, very dumb judge. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, anyway, that's along what we played because I had to recap a good chunk of Sean Con, at least what I can remember.
Hey, Sean, before we move on, though, our timing was about to be perfect for this, but it's now terrible, as usual, for the Spiel and Kennerspiel winners.
Oh, right.
Yes. So this is, for folks who don't know, the German Game of the Year Awards. Look at that, Sean. I jumped in right off the bat with the explainer. I'm on the
Good
ball.
job.
Usually some good picks that come from this. Just really quickly, the Spiel winner this year, Micro Macro Crime City. Basically, Where's Waldo the game? Runners up were Zombie Teens Evolution and Robin Hood. I will say with Zombie Teens in particular, an incredible value. Did you actually order that one, Sean?
I do have it. It's upstairs and just hasn't gotten played yet, but it's upstairs.
Abby and I are about 85% through the main campaign of this.
Oh,
so
wow.
We haven't opened everything, but it's held up. Look, this is not some super advanced cooperative game, but this is a great entry-level one. It has some evolution, it works well. The game works well. I've tried it with a couple of different folks besides Abby. Game is great. So would recommend that. Have not played Micro Macro. My guess is with the Spiel win, it will be very hard to find for a very long time. So probably won't play that for some time. But yeah, looking forward to that. So congrats to Micro Macro Crime City. And then your Kennerspiel winner, Paleo, the caveman cooperative game. Runners-up, Lost Ruins of Arnak and Fantasy Realms. Lost Ruins of Arnak, Fantasy Realms. So I would say nothing stunning. I think there's a lot of folks who thought Arnak probably should have won over Paleo, but it wasn't Fantasy Realms, so it wasn't the shocker of all shockers. So yeah, I don't know. Does that make you? Does the win for either of those games make you want to try either of them anymore, Sean?
No, not really.
right.
No, actually, I do want to try Paleo.
Yeah.
But the win doesn't change that for me.
All right. I've seen the Shut Up and Sit Down review. It apparently can get repetitive, so might be a good one to try at a con where you don't have to worry about, say, owning it.
Sure.
In any case, yeah. Congrats to the winners. Sorry to the folks who were just runners-up, but hey, sometimes if you're runners-up, you end up having a game with longer staying power anyway. So hopefully there's that. That might be the case for, say, Lost Ruins of Arnak. All right, well, that's what we played in a very, very quick news segment. After the break, our review of Oath. Well, Sean, the Game Toppers 3.0 Kickstarter is in the books, and thanks to a whole bunch of backers, Game Toppers had a heck of a Kickstarter campaign, more than $800,000 raised to get more Game Toppers, new features, all sorts of fun stuff headed folks' way.
Wait, did you say 800,000?
I did say that amount. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's a ton of money.
Sean, did you make it in time? Are you part of that group?
It's over? It's over? Like over?
No, it's done. I'm sorry you missed your window. But the good news, Sean, is that if you keep an eye on the Game Toppers LLC website, the late pledge manager should be open in the near future. Take a look there, and you can still get in on all the fun, get the newest features, get yourself a Watson, or get yourself, I don't know, whatever you want. Awesome game mats, rails, something cool to really take your gaming experience to the next level without getting a fully dedicated gaming table, which is exactly what Game Toppers is all about. Check them out, GameToppersLLC.com, because if it ain't a showstopper, it ain't a Game Topper. Adorable woodland critters doing battle. No, we're not talking exactly about Root, but it's the same artist, it's the same designer, it's the same publisher, but it's a game that's trying to do something a little bit different, especially when it comes to legacy and emergent storytelling. Does it do a good job, or has this oath been truly broken? We'll tell you.
All right, so Oath was designed by Cole Worley, art by Kyle Farron, and this is published by Leader Games. Oath is a competitive game. It's not cooperative, although there are times when players may be working together, but it really just depends because really only one player is going to win. One player is going to start the game as the Chancellor. The Chancellor has taken an oath that he or she needs to fulfill to the kingdom throughout the game. Otherwise, they may no longer be the Chancellor. Now, everyone else is an exile. They're an exiled player. And at the start of the game, they have no clear way to win. Although, if they could wind up fulfilling the oath better than the Chancellor, perhaps they may win if they could do so for a long enough period of time. However, eventually, they may receive a particular vision that gives them an alternate path to victory. And if they're able to do that at a certain point in the game, once they've kind of given notice to everybody that, hey, here's how I might win, then they also win. Now, at the same time, though, if you get to the end of the game, which hard end at turn 8, or round 8, I should say, but then there's some dice rolling for turns 7, 6, and 5, and it becomes increasingly more likely that you will roll high enough to end the game. If it gets to that point, it's very likely that the Chancellor will be the winner, as long as they have maintained their oath. However, then there's sort of these tiebreakers if they are no longer the oath keeper, and we're not going to get into all the details there. All right, now let's talk about the board. You have this big board that is the kingdom that has 3 different main regions. You have the cradle, which is sort of the inner part of the kingdom. Beyond the cradle, you have the provinces, and then beyond the provinces, you have the hinterland. And in each of these regions, there are different sites that will become available throughout the game. There's 2 sites in the cradle, and then 3 in each of the provinces and the hinterland. Now, some of these are going to start face up, and you are going to have your player pawns at different sites throughout the kingdom. And there's it depends on how that gets set up in different ways. There's kind of a starter way to do it, and then based on you choose it in subsequent games. Now, in addition to having pawns on site, and by the way, your pawn represents you. You may also have war bands on particular sites. War bands are your little army meeples, and whoever has war bands on a site, that's the person that controls, or I think it's rules is the correct terminology, rules that site, which the starter oath is actually to rule the most sites. Although again, there are other oaths that you might have in different games, but let's talk about that. That's the starter oath, ruling the most sites. So at the start of the game, the Chancellor rules the most sites. That's typically how that will get set up because they are the Chancellor, they are the oath keeper, and everyone's trying to bring the Chancellor kind of down a peg. All right. You also have your individual player boards, and on your individual player boards, you're going to have on the left side a turn summary. Also, it explains the different actions you can take. At the bottom, you have your supply tracker. Your supply is really your action points that you're able to spend throughout your turn to do various things. Also on your board, you're going to keep any of your resources that you've gathered. Resources are favor, these coins essentially, or their secrets, which are these books.
Every time you mention that during this review, you have to say that.
Are you saying every time I say the word secrets?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see what I can do. All right, so you keep those resources on your board. There's also a spot on your board where if you have drawn a vision card and you have chosen to reveal it, it goes on the revealed spot on your board, and that's another route to victory for you. And we'll kind of explain what some of those might be. All right, so that's kind of the rough setup. And now, as far as the turn itself, you have the wake phase of your turn, the action phase, and I'm blanking on the third part. It is, the rest phase. Yeah. All right. So the wake phase is just sort of an upkeep phase, and usually you're not doing a whole lot there. The main part of your turn, though, is the action phase, where you have available to you a number of different actions that each cost a different amount of supply. You have search, which lets you draw cards either from the world deck or from the associated discard piles of each of the regions. And there are different costs to do that. As the game goes on, it's going to cost more supply to draw from the world deck, while it's always going to cost 2 to draw from the various discard decks. But you can only draw from a discard deck if your pawn happens to be in that particular region. So when you draw, you're going to draw 3 cards. You're then either going to play a card to the site where you're at. It will likely give you some amount of favor from one of the 6 suits that the cards all have. And it might also give you some sort of additional immediate, when this comes into play, do this, or it may give you a special action that you can use if your pawn is at that particular site, or if you happen to control that site by having warbands there, or it might have some other sort of ongoing effect at that particular place. Instead of placing it in the site on the board, you can instead place it as one of your advisors, and it's private to you. There are certain cards that can only be placed to sites. There are certain cards that can only be placed as advisors. And then there are some cards that can be placed in either spot, depending on what you choose. The next action is mustering. And mustering costs you 1 supply, and it allows you to exhaust a site at your, exhaust a card, a denizen at your site. And then you get to take 2 warbands from your general supply and place them on your board. That's sort of your active military. The next action is trading. That allows you to trade coins for secrets, or secrets for coins. And you get more of these things if you're able to match suits of advisors that you have based on suits of where you're actually doing these trade actions. I'll keep it kind of vague like that. You have the recover action, which is actually recovering relics that are at sites, or possibly recovering one of the 2 banners that are available at the start of the game. Relics have these cool special abilities. They kind of create these asymmetric player powers. Because really, this is not an asymmetric game, except that the Chancellor is a little bit different, but all of the other exiles start the game pretty much the same. And then they have different rule-breaking abilities the more relics they get. And again, I mentioned those banners. There are 2 types of banners. One is associated with money. One is associated with secrets. And these all give you some certain rule-breaking abilities. They also potentially contribute to one of the vision, or actually many of the vision endgame victory objectives. So interesting things there. There is a cost to recover relics at a particular site, and it's based on what that site cost is. It's variable depending on the site. Then you've got the travel. In fact, travel should be the first action they go over. It's weird that travel is actually the last. I'm saving one for last. But travel,
I know which one.
Travel allows you to move your pawn either within your region or from your region to another site in another region. And there's a variable cost. Moving from the cradle to elsewhere tends to be fairly inexpensive. Moving, though, from the hinterlands, even within the hinterlands, or from the hinterlands to other regions, tends to be more expensive because they're just kind of out there. Everything's kind of spread out farther apart in the hinterlands. That makes sense. All right. The last action is the campaign action, which is combat. Now, when you do a campaign action, you're going to spend 2 supply. You're going to take your pawn where it's at, and it's going to attack a player who has either their pawn or I believe their warbands present there. And then you choose what of that player, what things that they have that you are targeting. So you could choose some of their relics. You could choose any number of sites that they control. You can also choose the pawn itself. But the trick here is that the more of these things you choose to target, the bigger their defense pool gets. And they're eventually going to roll a blue defense die for each one that's generated as part of this pool. And these defense dice are 6-sided dice. They've got 2 blanks. They have 2 single pips. They have 1 double pip, and then they have a multiplier ×2 side to them. So the defender, after gathering their pool, they're going to roll their dice. They're going to add up all the shields with any multipliers they might have. That's going to be their total, but they're also going to add the total number of warbands that they have that are being targeted. The attacker is then going to roll a number of orange attack dice equal to the number of attackers they have on their main player board. And the orange dice either have blanks, they have half swords, they have full swords, or they have the double sword, but there's also a skull. If you roll a skull double sword, you're going to lose one of your warband, but it still generates a lot of swords. And you're adding all these up, half swords, full swords, etc. And if you exceed the defense value, then you're going to win. If you don't, you lose, except that you can also sacrifice warbands that you have on your board to increase your attack score by 1 until you get what you need. All right, so if you win and you attacked, say, their relics, you get to take those relics. If you attacked their sites, you get to take those sites. The loser is always going to lose half, rounded down, of their warbands, and the remaining half is going to return to their board. And then if you were attacking sites as the attacking victor, you get to add warbands to those particular sites so that you now rule them. Okay, so that's the basic turn structure. You do, there's a rest thing that you do, and sometimes it triggers certain things. But generally speaking, what you're trying to do is you're either trying to take the condition to maintain the Oathkeeper away from the Chancellor, or you're drawing cards, finding these vision cards to meet certain requirements that will then allow you to win in this other particular way. You're going to continue to do this. I feel like there's so much more I could talk about here. But I feel like it's just going to be a point of diminishing returns. There are so many. The goals are consistently changing in this game, and it's one of those games where, like I said before, you're trying to team up against the leader until there's now a new leader, and everyone needs to now gang up on the new leader. So that is a very rough rules overview of Oath, and we may fill some details in here and there as we go through. All right, Alex, what were your expectations for Oath before this ever got into your hands?
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Okay.
And I say that because we talked about this with Root, where there are a lot of elements of Root where I said, oh man, like this looks really interesting. You have completely asymmetric factions. You have amazing production and art. And then when it got down to it, I didn't have any fun playing the game. I will say, before I get into full thoughts, this has the same things going for it. Hey, amazing production, amazing art. This is an immersive world that has legacy elements, so your game's story evolves game to game. And it sounds fascinating. It has shifting roles and allegiances. You're the Oathkeeper, now you're not. You're a citizen, now you're an exile. And I was excited. I was genuinely excited for this. I wasn't excited to learn it. I knew it was going to be a bear of a learn. But man, oh man, was I optimistic going in. All right. Anyway, that's my initial thoughts. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, and by the way, you mentioned that there are some legacy elements. I didn't discuss that in the rules overview. No, just not going to happen. Well, we might discuss that throughout the review. But yeah, so let's talk about Root. So I enjoyed Root. Root is sort of an introduction to a coin game, a counterinsurgency game. There's the coin series from GMT that I own almost all of. I think they're fantastic and I love them. I really enjoyed Root, but I'd still rather play a coin game. So I heard this was coming out. I heard that it was a little Root-esque, and there were some quasi legacy elements. And when I say that, ultimately you're not ripping things up and adding stickers to the board. There's just it's sort of the construction of the world deck, and also how each game starts, what particular sites might be available, what particular denizens might be out at the sites, and things like that. So it's legacy light. So I was intrigued because certainly I liked Root enough not enough to own it. Haven't played it since the review. But I was certainly intrigued. I had an open mind and I was hopeful that this would be something I would enjoy quite a bit.
Sean, is this a good point to throw Rory completely under the bus here?
I almost figure what's the point, but okay, sure. Why not?
Go for it.
So I was under the impression, so we spoke 5-6 weeks ago, Alex, I think is when we planned for this to happen. You picked up a copy of Root at Miniature Market. I ordered it up for you, had it ready for you. What's that?
Oh, wait. Oh, Root?
Or sorry, Oath.
You didn't order miniature. No, not Oath. This was a copy Patrick had.
Oh, why did
you didn't have to buy this for me.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Well, I misremembered that. Anyway, you told me, hey, I have a copy of Oath available in some way, shape, or form that I don't remember now. And I said, okay, well, let me see what we got going on here. And I was informed that Empire would be getting it any day now. And again, back to the, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, fool me 8 times, whatever. So yeah, it's not coming to Empire for like another couple weeks, even from this point. And by the time I realized, holy cow, this isn't going to happen. We had nothing else in the hopper at that point. So I had to go and pick up very expensive copy on eBay. So that's what I've got. I have, so Alex, did you play the Kickstarter version with the metal coins and the playmat? And it's
yes.
and we'll talk about this in more detail in a little bit, but yeah, that's where we're at. And boy, I was like, I kind of hope I don't like this game, so I don't feel compelled to keep it because I can't justify this amount of money. Like, and we're talking Dukes of Dice money even, like this was like several months of Dukes of Dice operating budget.
Yeah.
So we had to delay an episode because I'm like, okay, once I realized we weren't going to be getting it in time through Empire, I went to eBay and I'm like, Alex, we gotta delay this a week.
You talk about fool me once, shame on you. Relying on anything to get into Empire on time, I think is, I don't know. I think we're at that point with that.
Just keep in mind, money doesn't grow on trees, Alex.
Sure.
We have increased costs.
Sure.
Because we have two players, 2 podcast hosts in different states that sometimes need 2 review copies, or not review copies, 2 copies. So, it's fine. Everything's great. I'm shocked. I am truly shocked that we did not have anyone available that had backed this game or had this game. I thought Jeremy would have, because Jeremy loved Root. I figured he would have backed this game. But yeah.
Well, and let me throw out, Sean, because I think this plays a part in my review of this game. This is a beloved game on BGG. The expectations for this are sky high. I mean, you're talking rocking an 8.1 right now on more than 1,000 ratings. That's a well-loved game.
Yeah.
Well-loved. And I think, do I wait until gameplay to say this? I'm going to say this now to kind of frame up my version of this review, Sean.
Okay.
For me, the Emperor has no clothes when it comes to this game. This is a case where I can sort of see the appeal of this, I guess, but I think the love of this game is not earned. And this isn't, for me, one of those things where I'm sitting back and saying, well, I can see what the merit is. It's just not my kind of game. No, this is one where I just don't actually see it in a lot of ways.
Are you going to give this a 2?
Oh, it's lucky if it gets a 2.
I mean, all right.
but wait. This like the arc of this review is going to be down. I'm looking at our format: down, up, way down, up-ish, and then guild thoughts, and then down. So that's the pattern. I'm just gonna give people the pattern ahead of time.
All right, let's talk about the rule books, Alex. And I say rule books plural. So there is a main rule book that has everything in, this is section 5.1 and 5.11 and 5.12, etc. Then there's also a Oath playbook that here's what it says. It says, if you like learning from strict literal rules, read The Law of Oath. It's a comprehensive reference with few graphics and no examples. so some people will find it overwhelming to read first. If you mostly play games like Twilight Struggle and the 18XX series, this is for you. Um, the alternative is to go through the playbook, which has some sample turns, and then has you read some things about the actions, and then you're kind of off to the races. It even the nice thing about the walkthrough is not only does it tell you what that player is doing. By the way, it's set up in such a way that the game directs you. Okay, this pack of cards, open them first. There's directions on how to set up. Read this card, flip it over. Okay, the next three cards, put them out here. Stop. Now do this. Okay, it was interesting. Then you go through the walkthrough and it says, okay, it's the Red Exile's turn. Do this and do this. But then it gives you explanation. Why is this person doing this? Well, here's why. Because this is one of those games where the mechanics are fairly straightforward, but you're like, okay, I would like to do X, but before I can do X, I have to do Y. But before I can do Y, I have to do Z. And if you don't quite know what leads into another thing, and it's confusing. So that I found that helpful. There was one full round of playthrough, and then you're kind of off on your own. We struggled initially. I will say that as I had to look things up for reference in that Law of Oath, is that what it's called? In that the Law of Oath, yeah. I found it very easy to reference because I do like when rule books are broken down like this, like GMT rule books, for example, 18XX rule books, etc. It's they're very easy to reference. They are very difficult to learn from, but they're easy to reference because they're broken down in such a logical and straightforward way. So I was okay with this method of learning the game from that walkthrough. Alex, is that what you did?
So we had a walkthrough. We set up the thing as if it were a walkthrough. And we didn't play the turns as if they were a walkthrough. We just had a kind of a typical teach. So I will reference something here, Sean, which is that the heart and soul of this game, the core thing to it is campaigns, is that action. Is that action of, I drink your milkshake. I take your stuff. I take your relics. I take your land. I kick you off of here. That's the meat and potatoes action, the one core action. There's a book series by Tim Ferriss talking about it's something like the 4-hour work week. Are you familiar with this book? Yeah. He talks a lot about how he learned salsa dancing and how he became a salsa dancing champion in Argentina was instead of kind of going through the typical progression of, okay, learn the easy stuff and then get more advanced and whatever else, he practiced exclusively on the stuff people cannot get as experts. He worked on the absolute hardest thing. And if I have one piece of advice for people trying to learn this game, it is learn that campaign system and how it works really, really well and make sure it's understood. Because it took us, with no joke, 2 full games of this to accurately, properly understand this. And, Sean, let me throw this out there. Implications of key actions like, hey, you're now a citizen. Great, what does that mean? What if I need, as my citizen, I need to steal and become, like, I need to steal this relic from the Oathkeeper, the leader, the big boobah. What do I need to do? How do if I run a campaign against them, what are the advantages and disadvantages of that? That is not an easy question to answer, in my view, in this game. And it should be. It should be a very easy question to answer. And the rulebook does not make it an easy question to answer, in my view. It just says, hey, there's some advantages, there's some disadvantages. I don't know, go read this section and maybe you'll figure it out. And it took read and reread and reread and reread to figure it out. The teach of this was not a fun experience. And looking up and understanding the core of this game, the heart of this game, was not as easy as it should be. So, if I could do it all over again, I would spend more time investing on learning that action really, really, really well and making sure everyone at the table knew that action really, really well, because I think that would have improved the experience. I don't think it fixes everything by any means, but it would have improved the experience. I think the rulebook does its best. I think the game design is in many ways such a mess, and that campaign action gets so bogged down that it is more of a slog than I wanted it to be. We're going to be on very different pages with this one, it seems like.
Oh, I don't think so, Alex.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, and I think it's going to be for different reasons.
Okay.
But
okay.
I feel like in our group we saw the implications a little bit sooner, maybe.
Yeah, could be. It's very possible.
But there was one major thing, and it is related to the campaign that I think caused significant problems for us. So, but
Yeah.
we'll come to that in gameplay. All right, Alex, what about the art and components of this game?
An absolute unequivocal home run.
Sure.
Gorgeous. Playmat looks gorgeous. Art. Oh, Kyle Farron does the best art. Oh, the absolute best art. The cards are gorgeous looking. Tremendous. The game looks like a dream. It is a beautiful presentation, much like Root was. The components are stellar. Again, as you mentioned, Sean, this is in large part Kickstarter components. So, not take some of that with a grain of salt. Your mileage may vary. But I think it's colorful. The game looks gorgeous. I think the one trick with it, though, is there are cases of cards having to spell out a lot of things, and there's not a lot of at a distance, I can read this icon and know exactly what this card does.
Mm-hmm.
And because you have access to so many different actions at a given time through the rules of this game, I think that is somewhat problematic. That it's hard to, at a quick read, know exactly what abilities I have access to or not. It does color code the cards to some extent. Hey, these are battle plans. Hey, these are folks who you can have only as advisors. Hey, these are only locations. You can't have the old tree as an advisor. That doesn't make any sense. So it does some of that stuff pretty well, but the readability of the cards at a distance makes playability more of a slog than I would want. So that would be my one little critique. But no, it's a stunning looking game. The little books you get for secrets, I love the look and feel of the game in large part. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, no, I think it's really solid. It's got a nice insert. It's this playmat that's your main board, and it's stitched, so it's not going to undo or unravel or anything like that. Really nice, at least for this version of the game. Really nice coins, the gold coins. The secrets are really nice. Like overall, I think it's a very solid production. They give you really thick dividers because you have to set up the legacy element of the game after your first game. Overall, I think there was a lot of attention to detail that was paid here, and I think it definitely serves the game and serves that quasi legacy element very well, very well.
Yep. Well, great. Good job on that. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the substance of the game, the gameplay. And Sean, I'll start off with another big critique here. I do not like a lot of downtime in games if I can avoid it. Just not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick with how this game goes, and I think Root does the same thing too, if I'm not mistaken, is you have these big, long, chunky turns, and then nothing to do in between.
Yeah. Unless you get attacked. Yeah.
Unless you get attacked, which maybe will happen, maybe won't. But otherwise, you're watching someone kind of puzzle through, how do I spend my supply this go round? How do I have an interesting, impactful turn? Now, I sort of get the design behind that because you can pull an interesting ambush, right? You can pull, you can kind of pull your resources and do something unexpected with all of those different resources and actions. And so I get it from that perspective. But, oh, does it feel like such a slog? You're just sitting there watching a bunch of other players do a whole bunch of things, and you do nothing. Obviously, you want to watch what they're doing. You want to pay some amount of attention. But the engagement factor during those is so low. And let's add this, Sean. Let's say either because of amount of troops on the board or something else, I don't have a lot of supply. I may not have a lot of things I can do on my turn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or I may just spend 2/3 of my turn moving my person from the cradle to the hinterlands. or I don't have anything of value at it on a turn. I'm just sort of waiting for other people to build up forces and see who the threat is. You can have all of that downtime and waiting time and then have really unsatisfying turns. Some turns are really satisfying when you kind of set up an interesting ambush or you're working towards something. But there are big occasions where those turns are a whiff. And when you're only getting a small handful of full turns in a game, that's bad. And when you're waiting so long to get that turn, that's bad too. So it not only has long downtime, it also has turns that are completely empty or can feel completely empty.
Yeah, I think what I tended to notice is the early turns felt like there was a lot more going on because actions tended to be cheaper, because it's cheaper to draw from the world deck early on. Basically, anytime that so there are 5 vision cards, 4 that actually allow exiles, non-chancellor players, to win the game, and then there's one, not conquest, what's it called? Conspiracy. There's a conspiracy one that that is not an endgame winning card, but anyway. As more visions are exposed from the deck, the cost to draw from the world deck gets more expensive. Also, especially if you tend to start in the cradle or even the provinces, movement's a little bit cheaper. So what I noticed was, at least in our very first play, we were doing so much in the first round or two, and then as the game wore on, we're just like we were frustrated because we were expecting to be able to be doing the same amount of stuff that we were early in the game, when really the game kind of focuses you in, I think, later on. Although if you've built an engine and you're able to use various actions at different sites where your pawn is not located at because you control those sites, well, then you might still be able to have pretty big turns, but at the same time, that means that the rest of the players aren't really doing their job of keeping that particular player in check. So, but yeah, I agree. There were, especially, well, once I think I understood, okay, I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot of stuff, there could be unsatisfying turns. There could be turns where you really weren't doing all that much. And you're just like, all right, well, I'm just going to do this real quick, and then I'll do this, and I can't do anything else. Because the other thing, too, is you have less supply. So your supply regenerates every turn.
Right.
But your supply is based on how many warbands are left in your not on your board and not on the map. So the fewer warbands, in other words, the more warbands that you've deployed, or the more warbands you have on your board, the less supply you're going to have each round to spend on actions.
Sean, let's add in another thing here. Because you have access to cards at sites you control or are in, the turns can also drag out, and it becomes one of those kinds of games. I think this is a bad sign when this happens in a game, when other players are pointing out to you how to optimize your turn. I can't remember what the game was. It was a long time ago, Sean. This game ultimately got a 1. But it was a game where the corner kind of connecting piece, you remember you would like get tiles and you try and find like the optimal place to like line up corners?
Praetor.
Ugh. That was such a bad sign to me that in Praetor, you would actively be trying to help your opponent just so the game would speed along a little faster. Yeah. And this is one where, because of the sheer access of cards you have, it's brain burning, but not in a fun way. Brain burning in a this is making the game take longer kind of way, as you try and kind of piece together what to do. So, yeah. I didn't enjoy... I get why they have it, and there are some areas... What annoys me, Sean, is some of how this game represents things mechanically connects thematically. I guess we'll get to that. It's in a different section. But it's such a slog. And I haven't even gotten to the worst part yet, Sean. I mean, a lot of these things are bad. I haven't even gotten to the worst thing yet, in my mind.
Okay.
Sean, how did your games end of this?
With one player being the winner?
Did it end with a dice roll?
Yeah.
Both times?
Oh, well, okay. So to be clear, do you mean the game ending on a variable turn depending on the roll of a d6?
So let's explain this to folks.
That's what you mean. You don't mean necessarily on the roll of
Of say a combat or a
of a
player decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. So let's backtrack a little because this is one of those things that doesn't come in the rules overview, but I think it's important to note.
Mhm.
The game of Oath can end in a couple of ways. It can end if you accomplish the vision on your vision card and you start the wake up phase having accomplished that vision. So that's one way the game can end. The other way it can end is after a certain amount of time, at the end of a round, a die gets rolled. And the first time the die gets rolled, there's a 1 in 6 chance of the game just ending.
So on at the end of round 5,
Yes.
if you roll a 6 on a 6-sided die, the game ends. At the end of round 6, if you roll a 5+, the game ends. At the end of round 7, if you roll a 3+, the game ends. And if the game is not yet ended at the end of round 8, it's going to end automatically.
There's other ways the game can end, right? Aside from vision cards, there's a way for if someone becomes the Oath Keeper, one of the Exiles does, and then they hold on to it for long enough, they can win the game that way. But I think the key to my beef with this, and this is, in the game's defense, some bad luck. We had both of our games end, Sean, on die rolls, on that end of round die roll. Not on a combat die roll, which would have been exciting, but on a, oops, the round ended, the game's over kind of die roll. After round 5 in both cases. Rolled a 6 in both games.
Wow. Yeah.
But hey, it can happen. That's how the game's programmed. Like, hey, set yourself up so you're in an okay position to be. There's so many counterpoints you can throw to that. But the reality of it is it left a really bad taste. Because you invest all this time learning and all this time setting up and understanding the game. And the first time, maybe it's a mulligan. The second time, I will say, Sean, the table was grateful when that 6 rolled as early as it did. We found it hilarious because it just epitomized how awful the experience was. But, oh boy. The fact that it can end in that way. Like, it's not like, hey, I attacked you enough times and we're gonna do a roll of the die. You force this roll. It's just enough time has passed and maybe you get lucky and the die gets rolled. Mm-hmm. After 5 full turns. I've taken 5 turns in the game. Ridiculous.
Yeah, so really it's a question of variance, right? So
what happened in your games? How did yours end?
So our first game ended ended while I was in the bathroom. It was I was in pretty good shape. It was round 7. And after my turn, there was one more player, then it was going to be the end of the round. I went to the bathroom. I came back. I'm like, hey, did I win? And they're like, and I wasn't the chancellor, by the way. And they're like, no, the game's over. Trevor, the chancellor, won because he rolled a 5. I'm like, oh, all right. Second game, I was the chancellor and didn't roll a 6, didn't roll a 5+. And then also you don't roll if the chancellor is not the Oath Keeper. So on that 3+ roll for round 7, there was no roll. And then we got to round 8 and we had an automatic end game at round 8. But it's, yeah, there's a high level of variance, you know? It's for the game to just end on round 6, no, round 5, 1 out of 6 times, just cause that's not great. Like it's not great win or lose. It's just not great. I would almost be more interested in seeing if there was some way to affect that, either to make it more likely to happen or less likely to happen. So for example, if you're the Oath Keeper and in this particular game, the requirement is have more sites than anyone else. You just have to have more, right? But let's say that you have, not only do you have more, but you have 2 more, or you have 3 more than anyone else, then maybe you're just winning enough at that point that you should get a modifier to that roll so that it's something that you're working for. And it's something that there's still dice and there's still luck, but then there's some sort of mitigation one way or another. I don't know. It's just random. And yeah, you can keep the roll from happening if you usurp, not really. Well, yeah, if you take the oath away from the chancellor, you can keep the roll from happening. And I guess that's the way it does that. But you're not always in a position to do that, especially if there's a decision that the chancellor can make to bring an exile into the empire to make them a citizen, and they basically suck up all of their troops and they become imperial troops. There's then an alternate way for the citizen to win. If the oath keeper, or sorry, if the chancellor would win, there's a secondary condition that says, okay, the citizen wins instead. All right. So I mean, yeah, it was just too random with not enough ways to affect or mitigate that randomness. So I agree, that was frustrating.
Yeah, and again, bad taste as a result. I see the potential in a lot of the things here too, though, which is so frustrating about this, Sean. And I feel like I kind of need to blend in theme, because I think theme, there's a potential for this to be really cool. Like, I love the idea that the new person who is the head of the kingdom, the lands they control become the cradle of the kingdom and become easier to access because infrastructure gets built up to them, and they become more powerful and more interesting. They might get a fortress associated with them.
You're talking about the legacy, the quasi-legacy
Right.
elements after a game ends.
Exactly. Yeah, a game ends, stuff shifts over, stuff fades away, lands fall into ruin, new lands become available to get discovered. Things that are fixtures of the land are there. The way some of those things act are really interesting. Like, hey, there's this old tree that you can go to trade coins with the woodland folk. But then there was a ravaging horde or something, some name for a card along those lines, that got moved into that space and kicked that away. And that felt thematic, right? Those kinds of actions. You know, there were things in this game that felt like they had really strong thematic ties. And yet, things like the campaign action are really hard to understand. Did you get a full grasp on that? You mentioned you had an easier time with it, at least.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I think it's a clunky rule, but I don't know. I'm glad it went better for you.
So here's my big issue.
Oh, okay. Oh, your big issue. Ooh.
My big issue with the game is how, again, going back to variance. This is a game of dice rolling. Hey, I like dice rolling. I'm going to be playing in my first 40K tournament in 7 years in 2 days from now. I'm going to be chucking over the course of a single game. I'm probably going to be rolling literally 1,000 dice, right? That's fine. But the problem here is the way that these blue defense dice are set up. So like I said, it's a 6-sided dice. There are 2 blanks. There are 2 single shields. There's 1 double shield or 2 shields. And then there's a X2, a multiplier, times 2 multiplier. And what happens is as that dice pool gets bigger, the variance explodes. I don't know if it's, I looked up online last night and today to see if someone had done the math, like what the average number is based on how many dice are in the pool. But it's not just the average, it's the level of variance. So like, for example, we had times where we would roll 8 defense dice and you might roll 4 defense. Or you could roll 5 defense dice and roll 32. And it can happen. Is it likely? No, not all the time. But basically, once you get past, I think it's like 4 dice. Once you start rolling 5 or more dice, there's just such a huge level of variance. You might roll 3 with 5, or you might roll 16, right? And it's just it was really frustrating. And so maybe it's like, okay, well, the game is basically telling you, well, don't get yourself in a situation where you're attacking more than 4 defense. Okay, but sometimes I have to, right? I mean, you can spend 2 supply for multiple campaigns. Maybe I'm trying to take away relics from someone because that's my victory condition, or maybe that's the oath. And I can say, okay, I'm going to attack 1 relic at a time, but that's supply point inefficient. Okay, well, I need to attack multiples. So I had one where I had like 11 dudes on the attack, against 5 dice, and I wound up rolling poorly, like very poorly. They wound up rolling like 16, and even if I sacrificed every one of my dudes, I was literally only going to meet them, equal it. You need to beat it, and yeah, that's bad luck. Um, but they rolled a 16, and I think on average maybe they should have only rolled an 8. I don't know. Again, I started doing the math on a spreadsheet, and I'm just like, I'm not doing this. I don't have time for this. And I don't care enough anymore. You know, if this were something I wanted to keep playing and get really good at, I'm okay. Maybe I'll figure that out. But it was very frustrating, and it came to a point in our last game where I was the chancellor. I wound up losing. It was simply we kept just trading relics around, and ultimately I had to have a big turn. On my last turn I was successful, but then it was it was interesting because everybody was in a position to win that last round, and there are certain things that everybody had to do to make sure not only that they could win, but someone wasn't going to win at the start of their turn. And that was interesting, and that was intriguing, and that was somewhat enjoyable, although we figured, well, there's literally no way this third of 4 players can win this game, because if it goes to the end of the round, there's going to be tiebreakers, and there's literally no way they can win, and so they are only in a king making position. Um, and then it came to our last player. The last player had to take enough relics away from me, and then still have enough supply and enough warbands to take away enough of another player's sites, which they had enough just to beat me, but not to do that. So it was actually Matt who won the game, not the 4th player. And again, it just kind of came down to this high level of variance. Like he had to, I rolled a good enough defense that he had to sacrifice enough dudes that he didn't have enough dudes to then attack Matt. And it very easily could have gone differently where he did have enough dudes. So none of us felt good. Like Matt ended that game winning and is like, I don't feel good about that. I don't feel good about that win. Like it was just luck. And yes, there are things you can do. There's certain relics you can get that will mitigate dice rolls. There's certain relics you can get that will add defensive dice, add attack dice, but you also don't have a huge amount of control because there aren't a ton of relics in the game necessarily. They come out face down. It takes, like, if you're at a site with a relic, maybe it's not the greatest relic ever, but are you going to have an opportunity to get that relic? And knowing that having relics is one of the vision goals that you may or may not have at that point, but maybe you might get it. I don't know. I was frustrating. I mean, I think that's coming across in how I'm talking here, that this was a frustrating experience. And there were a lot of elements of this game that I really liked and wanted to like and wanted to enjoy these play experiences, but I ultimately didn't. And we all were frustrated by the dice, win or lose, right? Like I'd win a fight and be like, I shouldn't have won that fight. Like I shouldn't have. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, you are preaching to the choir here. I am very curious because I think there is a large faction of folks that seem to adore this game. I mean, absolutely adore this game. I'm looking through some of the BGG ratings, and it's interesting. You'll see a lot of like 10s with no comments, or like 7, whatever else, like some really high scores. But then you'll see some 4s with like a long screed of things. And then you'll see like a short 10, I absolutely loved it and found it really immersive. And then you'll see these like 4s with, again, this long screed of the turns are overly long and I don't know, Sean. I wanted to like this because of the art, because of the concept of emergent storytelling. I love a game where there's a story being told and you don't really care if you win or lose. You're just kind of being tossed around in a typhoon. But if a game is going to claim there's interesting decisions that have a big impact on whether you win or lose, I'm going to take how that game ends a lot more seriously. So the combination of that, the overly long turns, the insanely complex actions, and some empty turns, it just did not click. It was hard to digest. It didn't go down well with the group. And I guess I sort of get why some people might enjoy it, but I mean, if you're not enjoying it, that I think tells me a lot. That tells me a lot about this game.
Well, and I think that the big strength of this game is the quasi legacy element. And I recognize that, and I didn't play enough to really fully appreciate that. But the problem is, in any sort of legacy game, it's not just the in-between games, as exciting as those may be, as fun and interesting as those may be. If you don't like the game itself, if you're frustrated with the game itself, opening any number of packs of new stuff and ripping things up and putting stickers on the board isn't enough by itself.
Right.
You have to enjoy the core gameplay experience. And I didn't enjoy it here. And I mean, like you said, you were excited for the game to end. There was one turn. We were on round 7. We had one more round left to go. And I said, okay, it's my turn. If I don't take away one of Matt's sights, he's going to win. And I can do that very easily. And I'll tell you, I considered just not doing it. I really did. And I don't think either of the other players, the other two players besides me and Matt, I don't think they would have been too upset had I done that.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't. That's probably the worst kind of king making when, it's one thing if it's like, okay, I have a choice to make here, but it's really, I had no choice. I had to stop him. Right. But boy, I considered it, Alex. I really did.
That's not a good sign.
No.
But here's the thing, Sean. I can see the emergent storytelling come in. Again, as I mentioned, the shuffling of those lands moving up. Cards that remain in the deck coming back into play again, and you're just waiting for that one shoe to drop, that one card to come out, or you're seeing how different things interact on the table. There's a way of visualizing that in your mind that could have been really cool and could have led to an emergent story. And by the way, as I talked about, big difference between this and, say, Nemesis, I think the folks who lost that game lost it in a cinematic, interesting way where they had a memorable story to take with them afterward.
Mm-hmm.
Oath, you might just have an Oath Keeper who just kind of waits for someone to get strong enough, then beats him down. And then there's this negative timing element of, oh, you're about to accomplish your vision? All right, everyone gang up on them. Oh, you're going to accomplish your vision? Everyone gang up on them. I don't like that in games anyway. And that's the core of this one too, is sort of that jump on the dogpile the leader type of game.
And it's interesting because I do like that, right?
Sure.
I love that.
I know you do.
For whatever reason, not here.
Your taste is improving, Sean. I approve.
How dare you, sir?
All right. We've sort of talked about theme, and I really don't want to talk about this game anymore.
No, I agree. I'm done. Let's read thoughts, and then let's get out of here.
BJ said, "Whoo boy, I have some opinions on this one with an important caveat. I thought we could just jump in and play it at our game night, but I was wrong. I don't think Oath was meant for that at all. There's a metagame involved that requires an investment in time to really enjoy the game, in my opinion, and I only have one play, and the group only has another. The problem? The system just wasn't interesting enough to me to want to take a second look right now, unlike Root or Sleeping Gods, another game with a big time commitment. I'm going to try, but I put it 50-50. I don't have a second play by the look back next year." Sean, I got in 2 plays of this, but I wasn't stoked about the 2 plays, either of them. So, you want to go first? I think you should go first, because I'm thinking of hammering this thing pretty hard.
Yeah, so we rate everything here, the Dukes of Dice, on a 6-point scale. 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun, or as Alex says, bad, terrible, bad. A 6 is an all-time favorite that is a contender for the top 10, which Alex will describe as good, very good. He's a wordsmith, folks.
Yes.
Alex Wordsmith. That's his last name.
I'm going to change it.
All right. So where does Oath fall for me? Well, it's not a 6. It's not a 5. 5 is a great game. We'll really turn down a play of it. 4, a good game, worth playing, just not all the time. Belongs in the Duchy. Absolutely not, Alex. 3, game is okay. Oh, am I going to do this? Game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. 2, game has some merit but has significant issues. So this is what I got to decide. Is this a 2 or a 3 for me? And the big factor there is, am I willing to play this game again? Alex, let's come back to me. I don't know. I don't know
What?
if I'm willing to play this. I don't know if I'm willing to play this game again. I might. So there's this part of me that's like, I think I'd play it again, but I wouldn't want to play it enough to really enjoy the legacy elements. So does that mean I really want to play it again? Let's come back to me. Let's come back to me. I'm going to decide if it's a 2 or a 3. And yeah, let's end there. Let's end there for now. Alex, are you giving this game a 1?
So let's talk it through, because this is not a common thing to do. And I have to fight a couple of instincts here, Sean. One of them is when I was in high school, and we've talked about this on the show before, but I think it's worth repeating. There was a time when someone, was talking about how much they loved the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And me being an idiot at the time was like, oh, Red Hot Chili Peppers suck. I had never heard any of their songs. I just was reflexively opposed to anything popular at that time, at that point in time in my life. And I think there's some element of me that still sort of has that or can have that. So I'm worried that I'm sort of like disliking this game as strongly as I do because it's popular. But the truth of the matter is, I've also played Nemesis within the span of this period of time. And I would play Nemesis at least a couple more times and loved it. And both of them have similar complexities. I think Nemesis is a little bit lower, but this one's almost a 4. Oath is almost a 4 on BGG. So it's an investment to get into. 4 out of 5 on the complexity scale. Let's summarize the thoughts, and let's summarize what a score is on this scale. The game really succeeds at art and components. Wonderful, great. But as we've always talked about, gameplay is king. I can also see some of the thematic things it's trying to do, and saw some of those moments in emergent storytelling. Is that enough for me to say game has some merit but has significant issues? Because it ain't getting higher than a 2, Sean. I'm not playing this thing again. It's not happening.
Okay.
Or does poorly designed but playable fit? Here are my arguments for why. So the game has some merit, right? You can point to the legacy elements and the uniqueness of that system, how there's opportunity for emergent storytelling, cards repeating, coming back out. There are sparks of innovation in this game, and Kyle Farron's art is amazing. On the other side, primarily in gameplay, the game can end suddenly and jarringly through no real actions of the players. And sure, it's not going to happen all the time that way, but when it does happen, doesn't feel great. The combat system is a bear to understand and gets in the way of significant enjoyment of the game. The turn downtime is unbearably long, and the turns themselves, when you finally get one, aren't always interesting. And you might only get 5 total turns in the game, and if even one of those is a wasted turn, then you've spent an awful lot of time for not a lot of game. Sean, I have to, and it's not just like being in opposition to something that's popular. I think I am obliged to the board game community to register my dissent in such a way. The Emperor has no clothes. I sort of get why some people like this game as much as they do. I think they're dead wrong.
The Chancellor has no clothes.
The Chancellor has no clothes. The Oathkeeper has no oath.
Let's keep it thematic, Alex.
Oh yeah, okay, whatever.
Let's keep your vitriol thematic.
I think this game is not very good, and we talk about a lot of times, Sean. Well, I didn't like this game, but I can see why other people do. I like this game, and I don't see why other people do. And I think for that reason, I have to give it a 1. Poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. I think it is poorly designed but playable. Much more describes my feelings and thoughts on this game. I think it is tremendously overrated. I don't understand how Shut Up and Sit Down gave it the review they did. I don't understand all of the high scores on BGG for this. I will also acknowledge that this was going to be a long shot to be an Alex kind of game anyway, but I can play games that aren't Alex kind of games and still appreciate them. I don't appreciate this game. I think it does. It has way too many missteps. Sean?
Alex, now I feel bad. Now I feel bad that you ravaged this game.
You've been right there. I haven't heard a lot of positive from you.
I feel like we're hurting Cole Worley's feelings, and we're hurting Leader Games.
Oh,
feelings.
they are doing just fine. Don't you worry about them.
And so just so we can, not burn all of our bridges, I feel like I gotta give it a 5 just to
balance it out.
To balance out. No, I think I'm gonna give it a 2, Alex. Game has some merit, but has significant issues. I don't think I want to play this again. I'm 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 curious. I'm curious about that emergent narrative from the legacy elements, but I don't want to put that work in to see that. It's just not something I want to do. Alex, oh boy, I spent over this last weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a total of 30 hours painting up some tanks, some airplanes, some artillery pieces for this Warhammer 40,000 tournament I have coming up. I stayed up Friday, Saturday night till 3 or 4 in the morning, which I haven't done in I don't know how long, even at SeanCon. And so I'm willing to put in time if I'm going to get something out of it that I appreciate and find enjoyable. But there just wasn't enough here, Alex. I was playing this game and I was thinking, boy, I should be painting right now. I have other things to finish for this tournament coming up. And at least if I were playing a really good game, I'd feel good about it. But I didn't. So it's a 2. And I am different than you though, in the sense that I still don't think that I do get why people like this. I think.
Do
maybe.
You though? This is a Sean kind of game, you would think.
So here's what I think. I feel like Root is the better game, and I think that this and Root are similar in a lot of ways. Root is fully asymmetric because it's like a coin game. This is semi-asymmetric because you've got the Chancellor, and then there's emergent asymmetrism. Is that the right word? Asymmetricity? Asymmetricity? Is that right? I don't know if that's right or
something
not.
Like
say
that.
It is. And there's sort of an abstracted map. So Root has a map with routes. This abstracts a lot of Root. And there's similar card play. But what this is doing, I think, is it's kind of a somewhat stripped down version of Root, adding in these legacy elements, and I think that there's a lot of appeal there. But I'd rather play Root. I would play Root again. I would rather play a coin game over Root. But if I went to a con, someone had Root set up at the table, and they're like, "Hey, we need you to fill in here," I'd be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I'll enjoy that time." I don't think I'd do that here. I think this is. I think that there is value in this game for playing kind of that legacy campaign ongoing thing. But shy of that, no. And it's not, to me, it's not worth. Oh, that's the other thing too, right? This could be like an hour and 15-minute game, or it could be like 3 hours because it either ends on turn 5 or goes to turn 8.
Sean, ours ended on turn 5, and it was more like a 2.5-hour game in the second one, where we knew the rules a little bit more.
Yeah.
So not even that really saved it.
Alex, why are we still talking about this game? We gave this a 1 and a 2.
I'm out.
Let's move on.
We're out of here.
Done. We're done.
Yeah. Get out of here, Oath. Ugh.
What's the last game that we collectively rated this lowly?
Oh, you'd have to some Dukes of Dice Duchy historian will have to go back and check it out. Look, I feel validated that you had, because we didn't talk about this at all before the show.
No.
So I feel validated when we're on the same page with this kind of a game. I was worried that it was just the group didn't like it for whatever reason, but I will tell you, this is the same group primarily that did King's Dilemma and adored it, and did Nemesis and seemed to really like it. So I don't know. Those are very different games. It's not a good comparison, but more the point of being, there's better games for emergent narrative. There's better games for legacy. There's certainly better games for board area control combat types of things. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, I'm done.
All right.
That's our review of Oath. Sean gives it a 2. I give it a 1. Ugh.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, next up, our Dukes Double Take. Episode 230, Roman Numerators, where we reviewed Europe Divided. And Sean, we were way on different pages on this one.
This
way
was
on
Dukes,
different pages.
Dukes Divided.
Dukes Divided. Well, and it was funny because this was sort of an attempt to sabotage. I think you got a chance to pick the game and intentionally tried to pick something that you thought Abby would just hate. And what happened was, Abby and I actually enjoyed it well enough, and you hated it.
Yeah.
I went back and listened to this. Sean, at the time, I gave this one a low 5. I said, look, there are tough and interesting decisions. I like the simplified movement. This is the first of this kind of game that I really enjoyed. I found this a pleasant surprise, though I admitted it was probably going to go to a 4 on the double take. You, Sean, gave this one a 2 at the time. You said it way overstayed its welcome. You felt like you were going through the motions, especially in the later turns. And you were upset that your nefarious plan to have me play something I wouldn't like had backfired. So, Sean, I'm guarantee you haven't played this one since. It's not in the collection. Is that right?
Oh, heck no.
Yep.
Yes, Alex, I have, and I have changed my ways. It's no longer 2. It's now a solid 4.
Hey, going back to Oath, do you think there's a chance? What do you think the chance is that you have actually played this in the meantime? Is it like 5%?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm gonna get rid of this copy.
How big of a loss are you gonna end up taking on that?
I'm expecting about $60.
Oh boy.
Which is fine. We rented it for the podcast.
Put it up on eBay and hope folks haven't listened to the show.
Well, that's what we were joking about last night. I'm like, oh man, if I want to drive the eBay price up, I really got to talk this game up. 6s all around. The new Boxcars winner.
By the way, if you see my username on eBay, pay generously. Yeah, I may or may not have played this one since. I can't remember. I think the answer is
you haven't.
Not
you
quite.
haven't.
But I will say this, Sean.
No. Whatever you're going to say, the answer is no. You did not.
Well, no, but this part is objectively true, what I'm about to say. In our new house, we have the same shelving, but there's now a bunch of room in the basement. And there's sort of 3 different areas where games live right now. There's the to-sell tubs, which are tucked way back in a dusty corner of the basement. There's games that haven't quite made their way upstairs, but are sort of in the middle, that are living in the basement in different little things. We haven't really fully unpacked the basement yet. And then there are a couple of shelves upstairs that are loaded with games. Europe Divided is on the upstairs shelf of games. Games to have access to, games to have on the shelf. No, we haven't played it again. It's probably legitimately more of a 4. A good game, worth playing just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy. That's how that score works. But I maintain this is better than expected. That being said, at the time of the podcast, no guild thoughts on this game. And at the time of the double take, no guild thoughts on this game. So let's wrap it up there. That's a low 5 for me, turning into a 4, and stays at a 2 for Sean. Before we wrap things up, though, the best of the rest of the names we did not pick. And this was I would say, Sean, quite a good, in opposition to how bad Oath is, the names this week were quite good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Lead us off.
First up, BJ from Board Game Gumbo with Swearing Allegiance. Swear referencing to Oath, allegiance referencing to the nations and trying to influence other nations. Pretty clever name.
And then next up, we have Josh Inger, who, again, the one episode shot, or sorry, the one word episode title, going for that cold shot, so to speak. Empire. You got the Empire and Oath. You've got kind of the 2 post-Cold War empires in Europe Divided. So yeah, not bad.
Yeah. Next up after that, Jimmy DM90 with World War III, which referencing, and apologies, Cole, for several reasons, but also for not knowing exactly how to pronounce your last name. It might be Worley War 3, but it's spelled as if it's Cole's last name. And then War 3 referencing kind of the Cold War. It's a clever name. That could have been the pick. Good one there, Jimmy.
Yeah. And then Mr. Punter suggested effing Brexit, which, I mean, I get the reference, but can you walk this through, Alex?
Swearing.
And oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people played off of that once BJ sort of broken open that can of worms. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Pretty good name. And then Chris Holm with Games of Thrones, referencing kind of the changes of leadership and the political intrigue and battles that you have in both of these games. So there you go. Good job, Guild.
Good job, Guild. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for all of your help. This has been episode 255, which we're calling Coal War. Thanks again to Steve O'Rourke, the name father, for that episode suggestion. Alex, I have got to go put mud on tanks now. So let's call it a day. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on July 29th, 2021. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all Dice in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Game Toppers. You can learn more about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. Remember, it's not a showstopper unless it's being played on a Game Topper. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks, probably. Until then, game on.